Hello everyone, hope this is working again, hope you're well, hope the exam wasn't too bad last week. Don't worry, we'll get more practice of that, I'm sure. So in this PowerPoint today, I'm going to be talking to you about film marketing, which comes up in the section B of the exam, which is going to be focusing on industry and audience in the exam for film marketing. So let's get into it, shall we? Exciting stuff. Excuse any, I'm going to just go for a live take here, so excuse any errors. If I start making mistakes, bear with me, bear with me. Right, here we go. So, in your film marketing exam, you will be focusing on these two films, I, Daniel Blake and Black Panther. I should imagine a lot of you have seen Black Panther, but maybe you haven't seen I, Daniel Blake yet. It's definitely worth a watch. It was on YouTube a little while ago, but I think it might have been taken off, which is a blooming shame. But you know, it's definitely worth a watch. Maybe you can try and track both those films down this week and give them a watch. Anyway, so we're going to be focusing on those two, and in this presentation, we are going to be looking at I, Daniel Blake. And we're going to be looking at the industry side of the argument. So this week, we're just focusing on I, Daniel Blake and looking at the industry behind it. And in this presentation, we will be covering, we will be covering who made I, Daniel Blake. So we're going to talk about who made it. That's a very interesting sort of discussion. You've got to remember the whole time that this is going to be compared to Black Panther. And spoiler, Black Panther was made by Disney and Marvel, as I'm sure you're aware, which are a big company. Now, I, Daniel Blake isn't like that. It's very much, a different sort of structure, different sort of production to Black Panther. I, Daniel Blake's a different sort of thing, much smaller, lots of different small companies working together. We'll talk about that. Who made Daniel Blake? Who are the individuals behind it? Auteur theory. So some of you might know about auteur theory already. I think we've spoken about this a bit. I mean, Wes Anderson we've spoken about in Riptide. He's certainly an auteur. He has a style. So we're going to talk a little about auteur theory and what that is, and how it might be relevant here. Co-production, I sort of spoke about that already, but yeah, we're going to be talking about the fact that this is a co-production, so that's a big thing. This is not about a vertically integrated company, this is about many little companies coming together for a co-production, so we will get into that. And finally, we're going to be talking about ideology, so that's quite a big part of this film, and it's quite a big part of the people who made it. It's a kind of political film, I guess. It's a social realism political film. Definitely worth a watch. It's really good. So I think if you watch it, it'll give you more of an idea of how all the ideologies fit in. So let's do this thing. Let's move on. Let's see. So who made it? That's the first question. Who made it? This bloke made it. Ken Loach. There he is. Power to the people. Salute there. So he's a social realist filmmaker, English. I mean, he's an English genius director. Really, he's one that we should champion, along with people like Mike Leigh, and I guess to a lesser degree Shane Meadows. Ken Loach is a pioneer in the social realism movement. So what are social realist films? Well, these are some of the social realist films he has made. Here. So Kes, very famous. Cathy Come Home, that's a very famous one. Both Kes and Cathy Come Home are worth maybe watching the trailer for, or, I mean, definitely worth watching, but, I mean, if you can't bear that, then maybe watch the trailer. He released something, his most recent one was this one here on the right, Sorry We Missed You. I haven't seen that yet, but maybe that's one I need to watch. They're all fairly gritty. I mean, you can sort of tell just from those images there, can't you, that they're sort of gritty. They are about working class people. They often talk a lot about they often criticise the government, particularly obviously the dreaded conservative government. They often focus on working class and small sort of areas. So it's not like central London, like American-made English films, if you know what I mean. So there are sort of themes that travel across them, let's have a look at that theory of auteur a little closer. Boom, there it is. So, Ken Loach, auteur. What is an auteur? Well, an auteur is a director with a recognisable style. So somebody that you can see a similarity across their films. Wes Anderson we've spoken about. So if you watch all of his films or a few of his films, they have a feel, they have a look. Cough again, sorry. That's not Corona, I'm sure. So Tim Burton is another auteur who has a style, certainly, across his films. Tarantino. I mean, I'm sure you can think of a lot. Lots of good directors. Stanley Kubrick, Alfred Hitchcock, the man, Alfred Hitchcock. The first auteur, I should just point that out. Maybe not really the first auteur, but the first director to be given the title of an auteur. So it's a director with a recognisable style. They have repeated narrative themes or ideologies across their films. They sometimes work in a specific genre, not always. So Stanley Kubrick worked across genres. Ken Loach, the guy we're talking about here, he definitely is rooted within the social realism. But then, I mean, think of other people. Tarantino, he does, gangster, western, all sorts of sort of war films, all sorts of stuff. So sometimes they work in a specific genre, sometimes not. They signify something to the audience. I think this is a big thing. So, if I said to you, let's watch the new Gore Verbinski film, like that's the dude who made Pirates of the Caribbean. What's that mean? His new film, it could be anything. Like, he's got no style. He's just some guy who gets hired by studios to make what they want. It doesn't really signify anything, saying a Gore Verbinski film. But if I said to you, let's go and watch the new Tim Burton film, then you might sort of start thinking, well, I bet Johnny Depp's probably in that, and I bet you it's going to be a fantasy film, and I bet you it's kind of gothic, and it's probably got Danny Elfman doing the music, and it's probably sort of like a reapproach to a slightly sort of fairy tale sort of narrative. I don't know, stuff like that. If it was old Tim Burton, you'd probably think it's quite good. If it's new Tim Burton, you'd probably think it's quite bad. He has he has terrible sexism. Sorry, the director, which should be female as well, has a built-in audience of fans. So they have what is known as marquee value. Their name on a poster will mean something. So, from the maker of, Reservoir Dogs, from the maker of Trainspotting, that means something. Their name alone, I shouldn't say, their name alone. Danny Boyle, a film by Danny Boyle, that should mean something. A film by Ken Loach, that certainly means something. It means all of the things above. It will have. People will know instantly what the kind of topic will be like, what the kind of style will be like, where it's going to be set. He will have a bunch of people who will instantly go and see all of his films because they like him. So all that. Ken Loach is a left-wing political director who makes social realist films, often criticising the Conservative government. You can see that throughout his films. Ken Loach is a firm Labour supporter, and we will see that as well. One of the points about auteur is often that they put something of themselves in their films, so it's quite personal. So let me see. So I mean, Tarantino, everything he liked or likes appears in his films. The actors he likes, the kind of he makes parodies almost or pastiches of films he likes. There's lots of quotes from other films that he likes. He's in all his films. He can't help but put himself in it. Tim Burton loved Dr. Seuss. Dr. Seuss, Green Eggs and Ham, and all that. And what's the other thing? I don't know. The Cat in the Hat, The Grinch, all that. So a lot of his stuff has elements of Dr. Seuss in it. Like it might be stripes on Beetlejuice, or it might be. How the Grinch Stole Christmas is exactly the same as The Nightmare Before Christmas, isn't it? They're very similar. So you can see that. And with Ken Loach, he's a Labour supporter, and he puts himself in his films in that way. You can see a criticism of the Conservative government and his support for Labour. Right, we've been on this page too long. Let's move on. 16 films. Right, now this is the part where you need to start memorising some of these names. Ken Loach started 16 Films. This is his production company. It's a very small company that he started up to make his movies. So they wrote and wanted to make I, Daniel Blake, but they are tiny. They're a tiny company, so there's no way they would be able to do any level of production, distribution, or exhibition alone. They couldn't do one of them on their own, let alone being vertically integrated. These guys couldn't even make the movie on their own. They needed extra funding. So they went to Why Not Productions. Why Not Productions are a French company, and Why Not Productions are fans of Ken Loach. So this is a bit where the auteur thing kind of helps. If I went to Why Not Productions and said I had an idea for a film, they wouldn't even answer my email. But Ken Loach has power. He not only are they fans of his films, they like his films, but they know other people like his films, and that it's worth an investment. They'll at least get their money back. So Why Not Films, the French company, decided to team up with 16 Films. Boom. So we get these two. So 16 Films, and Why Not Productions teamed up. I've got some extra slides in here. I'm not too sure why I put them, because I've talked over a few of them. I think I should have skipped on earlier. So let's just rush through these. They're a bit strange. Here we go. This is where we're at. They are not vertically integrated. Neither of these two are vertically integrated. They can't distribute. They can't market. They can barely produce. They're good producers, but they don't have the money. They don't have the sort of money in the bank to make productions. So basically, they teamed up together to try and make I, Daniel Blake, to try and fund it, but they couldn't do any of the other stages that you have in vertical integration. They couldn't distribute it or market it, and they certainly couldn't exhibit it. So they needed more help. So who do they turn to? E1 Productions. E1, or some people say Eon. I think that's a weird way to say it. E1. I don't know. E1, Eon, they came on board to do the marketing and the distribution. So they're in charge of all of the marketing that we will talk about in the next PowerPoint, I think. And they're also in charge of getting the film out to cinemas, deciding which cinemas it's going to be shown in. Was it even worth releasing it in America? It didn't really get released in cinemas in America. It was shown, I think, once. So they made those sort of decisions. They worked out the marketing. They invested their money there. Now, even with Eon on board, and Why Not Productions and 16 Film working together, even though they still didn't have enough money to make the film. They still didn't. I mean, this is an expensive game. So they needed more funding. So who did they turn to? It's exciting, isn't it? I can see you're all excited. Boom. BBC Films and BFI, the British Film Institute. So, BBC Films, part of the BBC. We have spoken about the BBC in Late Night Woman's Hour. You'll remember some of the stuff there about their funding and stuff. We'll get into that. Extra funds for films that are British. So, sorry, let me get into this. These two companies, you can apply for funding for your movie to either of these two, BFI or BBC Films. However, they tend to fund certain films, and these certain films have to have these criteria that I've listed below. So extra funding for films that are British, they have to be British, quite alternative and niche, so they don't, you wouldn't get the BFI funding Shaun of the Dead and things like that. That's too mainstream. Or or the In-Betweeners movie, that's not going to happen. Or Harry Potter, I mean, that's not going to happen. But the BFI will fund things like I, Daniel Blake, and much smaller and niche kind of things that have a cultural significance. So I, Daniel Blake certainly does have a cultural significance. As you'll see, it represents part of the country that doesn't often get represented, and it's got a lot of contemporary political argument going on within it, and represents aspects of Britain. I think I covered that in the last thing I said. See if you can see this in the trailer. There you go. No, yeah, crack on with that. Go onto YouTube and have a look at the trailer. I could probably put the trailer in here. Next, I'll look into that. But for now, go to YouTube, check out the trailer, and see if you think the film is obviously British, quite alternative and niche, if it has cultural significance and if it represents aspects of Britain. See if you can see that in the trailer. I think you will. You can pause this if you like, or not. Here we go. So this is stuff that you've certainly, we've been through this very relatively recently with Late Night Woman's Hour. I'm sure you remember all this. So BBC is a public service broadcaster. It's paid for by the licence fee, which is I think it's about, I shouldn't have done this off the top of my head, I should check. I think it's about £150 a year. Somebody check that, Google that, check that. I think it's right. Leave a comment. So it it has a remit to inform, educate and entertain. They are the key things. When the BBC started, it was just to inform and educate. They were very snobbish, and ITV came out as sort of a competition to that, to almost to purely entertain. And you can certainly see the traces of that still today, with BBC being a little bit more highbrow and ITV being more entertainment based. The BBC must represent diversity, so new talent. Oh, that's the next thing, I shouldn't have said that. So different ethnic groups, different regional groups it must represent. If you go back and watch, even as far as I think in the early 90s even, on the BBC, when I was growing up as a kid, everybody on the BBC spoke like me. Hello, this is the BBC, welcome to the BBC. You go back a bit further, go back and watch 1950s BBC, and they are all clipped in that accent, like, hello, welcome to the British Broadcasting Corporation. It's all like that, and I really think it was like that up until at least the late 80s. If you watch it now, there's a lot more regional accents across the board, which is good. So there's a lot more choice, a lot more regional accents across, and a lot more representation across, and that's an important thing that they have to do. I really need to get a drink of water. Let's crack on. So here we go. They must promote new talent. Hopefully you watched the trailer on the last slide. You'll see there's no stars, there's no famous actors, there's nobody recognisable in I, Daniel Blake. There's nobody. I mean, the guy who played I, Daniel Blake was not an actor, he's a stand-up comedian who just never done acting before. So, I mean, that's very common with Mike Leigh's stuff, with Ken Loach's stuff. Ken Loach. Mike Leigh as well, but Ken Loach. So, social realism, seen as educational. So this film is seen as sort of semi-educational, fits in with the BBC's remit. Can you see elements of this in the film's trailer or other advertising? So, do you think from seeing the trailer or seeing any of the advertising so far, or hopefully you maybe would have watched the film, can you notice that? Do you think that it fits to the BBC's remit? And on. Theory. Oh, here we go. So think how this may challenge Curran and Seaton's theory. You know what Curran and Seaton say, that the media is controlled by a very small amount of companies who produce things to maximise power and profit. Well, there's several things here that challenge that. Maybe the film was not motivated by profit. It didn't make very much money. I don't know if it broke even, actually. It certainly didn't make a lot of money. Maybe having a co-production, so many small companies, because we had so many small companies working together, do you think that leads to more creativity? Maybe that muddles the message a bit. I don't know. I mean, with Disney, there's one person calling the shots. You must do it like this. It's Mickey, isn't it? Mickey sitting in the castle saying, you must do it like this. But with I, Daniel Blake, you've got 16 Film, you've got Why Not Productions working together, BBC saying, well, you've got to make it a bit like this, BFI, all these things, and maybe that adds more creativity. I don't know. It's certainly not a mainstream film, is it? So it does challenge Curran and Seaton's theory, much in the same way Late Night Woman's Hour challenges it. God, we're on 19 minutes already. Let's power on through this. Sorry about this, guys. This must be boring for you. I hope I'm making it slightly entertaining. Let's crack on through. Oh, actually, I think we're nearly there. So, this week's task. Please make notes. All the studios involved in the production must be memorised. So, you must go back and make notes of the studios I said. The key names: Ken Loach, 16 Films, his company, Why Not Productions, Eon, or E1, BBC Films, BFI. Make sure you've got them and you've got them all in order. Commit them to memory, because that will, without a shadow of a doubt, come up in the exam and be part of what you are talking about. Remember, this is a co-production. A co-production here. They're working together, coming together to make something. They are not vertically integrated, and it challenges Curran and Seaton's theory. So there we go. That's some interesting stuff. Make sure you got that memorised. Please watch. Oh, here we go. So stepping up from the trailer, please watch I Don't Know Blake. It's really good, guys. I mean, it's a great film. It's really powerful. It's really touching. There's a scene in it that always makes me cry. It's really important, I think, to watch it. If you live in this country, you should watch it. It's it's a reality of what's going on, still going on, and definitely worth a watch. Was on YouTube. I don't know if it is anymore. Might be on Netflix. Worst case scenario, eBay it, just buy it. It's a good film. You might want to watch it a few times. It's really, honestly, you'll feel a lot more watching this than you will watching Black Panther. This is like real. This is a real film. You'll get something from this, I would hope. Also, please watch the trailer if you haven't already, and look at the posters. Some of the posters are on here. You could also Google just I Don't Know Blake posters. Have a look at the posters. Maybe you want to make a little kind of what's the word? A mood board. Drag some images onto an A4 piece. Save some of the posters so that you are familiar with them. Look at the posters. You'll see, that picture of Ken Loach that came up on here with his fist in the air. You may have seen as we were going through, I meant to say this, Daniel Blake, one of the posters had him with his fist up in the air. It's a kind of power of the people power salute. I did it as I was saying it then, but you can't see that. So it's a kind of power salute. Maybe you see that's a sort of ideology within the advertising. Maybe you'll see, stuff like the photos used for the posters, stuff like him on the street. He's him on the street, in the world, in the real world, reality pictures, often up against a wall with graffiti and stuff like that. So have a look at the posters. Make notes on how the advertising promotes the film. Does it focus on issues? Does it focus on the director? Does it fit with the BBC's remit to be educational? Simple answer to all that is yes. Yes to all of them. There's the answer. Spoiler. But don't just write yes with a big felt marker on a A4 piece of paper. That wouldn't help. Try and make a couple of notes about where you see that. So on the posters, on the posters you will see reference to Ken Loach. You might see some references to some of the awards the film won. You will see signifiers about politics, certainly. It might mention some of his other films. So check that stuff out. And make a few notes, and we can talk about it in chat next week. And what's the last slide? I think we're on. This is the penultimate slide, so we've got one more to go. Here it comes. Brace yourself. Boom. Stay safe and have a good week. There we go. That's it. Alex is out. I'm off. Right. So I hope you liked that. I hope it was entertaining. I tried to make it a little informal for you. I haven't got notes. This is my brain just talking to you. So if it goes wrong, it's just like a class, isn't it? It goes wrong in class sometimes. Oh dear. Anyway, I better end this. Stay safe, everyone. Drop me an email if you need anything. Come to your chats in the chat room this week. It's always lovely to see you all. Please respond to the college forum posts that we put up so we know you've seen them. And that's about it. Stay safe and talk to you soon. Bye.